Have that dump button ready, because I honestly have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth.
Get ready for takeoff.
There is no way that I'm tapping out now.
You're listening to Unkillable.
If you didn't kill us last night, we are unkillable.
Hosted by Brandon Tierney.
What's happening, everybody? Episode number 26 of Unkillable. We got a little juice here. Let's face it. So after the Jets introduced Aaron Glenn, and we did a pod on that, and a lot of conversations, a lot of energy, obviously Muji in the building, things kind of settled down a little bit, got into the Rodgers stuff once that news broke after the hiring of the two aforementioned gentlemen, and then just a little, call it a mid-February malaise, where there wasn't a whole lot of Jets stuff trickling in. Well, now we're starting to get a little juice here, guys. All right, so this pod's going to be about what I think the Jets, what I think they're thinking in terms of the draft, just the first round, and whether or not that matches up with my thought process and what I think the Jets should do. So first of all, there's really three things the Jets could do. You could stay pat at number 7 and monitor the quarterback market, hope that Sanders or Ward falls to 7, which ain't happening. But if you're not enthralled with either one, and it doesn't seem like the Jets have any interest in Sanders, and I'll get back to that, obviously, more specifically on Cam Ward, you can just kind of lay there at 7, and you could take, whether it's, a stud defensive lineman, you could go, you can go corner, tight end, multitude, really anything that you think that you need matched up with the best player on the board at 7, number 1. Number 2, you could obviously move up. That's an aggressive play for a new regime. You can move up, and to move up, you're obviously only moving up for a quarterback. And again, I'll jump more into the weeds on that in a second. Or you could trade out. And listen, to trade out, much like moving up, you need a partner that you could trade out with. I'm going to go in really from 3 through 1, as I just presented to you. So descending order, not necessarily what I love the most or even necessarily what I think they'll do, just the order that I just dropped those 3 things on you. First of all, trading back. Trading back is appealing to me, and it's appealing to me for a couple of reasons. I think, when you moved on from Aaron Rodgers, not that it's a reset, not that it's a complete reconstruction of the Jets roster, rebuild, I'm not saying that, but it's clear that the emphasis is not, it's not fully focused on, we got to win year 1, we got to change the culture, though I know they're certainly motivated to change the culture in terms of no playoffs. We get that. But I think by trading back, especially if the Jets are contemplating moving on from either Sauce, Garrett, or both, or even Brees or Vera Tucker, which, I don't know. There's been no intimations on their end. And I listen, if I had to take a guess right now, my best guess would be the Jets are more enamored with Garrett Wilson than they are with Sauce Gardner. But there's nobody in the room that's going to be more equipped to deal with the evaluation of Sauce than Aaron Glenn. He's already flipped on the film, but I could promise you, I'm sitting here, what's up, Friday night at 6:36, late-ish February. I can promise you that Aaron Glenn and Muji already know if they want to move forward with Sauce. Because to move forward with Sauce Gardner, you're going to have to likely make him the highest paid cornerback in football. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not exactly rushing to the altar to do that, which is going to equate to about $80 or $100 million for a third-year player going into year 4 who can't tackle a lick and doesn't make interceptions. I'm sorry. So I'm not saying that I'm looking to move on from him, absolutely, but you cannot tell me that moving on from Sauce Gardner is not a plausible option for this new regime. So you trade back. Now, if you do trade back, you do a couple of things here. Number 1, you recover some of the draft picks that you lost in the Devontae Adams trade, in the Aaron Rodgers trade, and then you further fortify a good roster, in some spots a really good roster, and you just have an infusion of young, dynamic, cheap, attractive players, higher-end players, rounds 1, 2, and 3, right? That's option number 1. Option number 2 is to move up. Now, the only way that you move up is if you love one of these quarterbacks. And I mean love. If there's an ounce of hesitation, if you do it, you are a fool. Because to to have the first big move. Well, the first big move was telling Rodgers to get lost. The next big move will be what they do at 7, right? And the repercussions from that. And listen, the Jets have not been connected to Sanders once. The Giants have been. And there's a little smoke now starting to develop around the Jets. Jets like Cam Ward. Cam Ward. Listen, between Cam Ward and Sanders, I don't even think it's particularly close. I am team Cam Ward 1,000%. And now I remember when, not pertaining to the Jets, but when this started coming up on WFAN on my show with Sal a couple of months ago, and we knew the Giants were pitiful. Like, all right, Danny Jones is hurt. Now Daniel Jones is released. All right, Giants obviously going to draft the quarterback, or we think they will. Maybe less obvious now. Who knows? But I think many of us think that they need to. And it's always been Sanders. Like, Dable was going out to Colorado to watch him. They've got a relationship. I don't know that you're doing all that as a smokescreen to maybe just have Cam Ward fall to you. I don't know. That's why there's so much stuff here. And I love this stuff. I really do. Like, I don't necessarily love getting in the weeds on, like, I'll put the combine on for a minute, like little white noise. But I'll be honest, like, after a while, hearing the same nonsense. Oh, look at this safeties or corners. Look at his fluid hips. Look at how this quarterback diagnoses the verbiage and the constant regurgitation of these cliches. When half of these guys, and I'm not saying they're not good at their job, they're these pundits who do this for a living, but they're more wrong than I am. And I'm not paid to specifically break down the NFL draft. I get paid to give opinions and to hopefully have entertaining ones, and to tell you, get on the air and say, all right, what direction should the Jets and the Giants go position-wise? And then if there's a player or two that I think I like, well, then I'll tell you. 40 times, shuttle times, the mental test, the interviews. It is such a crapshoot. It is flipping the dice. It's rolling the dice. So if the Jets are going to do this, which would be option number 2, you can't miss. Imagine if they go from, and in a minute I'll tell you who they're going to have to trade with, and other teams that could block that move up to whatever it's going to take to get Cam, probably one. Imagine if they're off on this. Imagine if their assessments, imagine we're sitting here doing the pod and me doing my show on the Fan in 2 years, and we're like, wow, they gave up what to Tennessee or whomever for Cam Ward? Look, this guy's worse than Zach Wilson, which I don't think he will be, but you can't be wrong. So if you are, I would be actually really impressed to have the stones to come in, guns a-blazing, and just say, screw it. Yeah, I know they messed up they actually messed Darnold up. They didn't necessarily mess up the drafting of Darnold. I do think they messed up Zach as well, and I also think he was overdrafted, but that's not their problem. And they're not worried about past mistakes, but that's still aggressive. Like, you are trying to get separation from the follies of all the different Jet regimes. Man, the first time you get in a batter's box, you're going from 7 to 1, multiple ones, multiple twos, whatever the hell it's going to take to do it. This kid better be around 10, 12 years, and he better get you to a couple of Super Bowls or at least a couple of conference championship games. And if he doesn't, that's going to write itself at the latter part of a decade. But if he's not even remotely competent early, then Glenn and Muji, then it's like, all right, recycle, reset, flush him down the chute, bring in 2 more people. You can't miss. All right, so that's option 2. And then option number 1 would be to simply, stay. Option number 1 would be to just stay there at 7, see what happens in front of you. And, if you don't love either quarterback and you're not motivated to move mountains to get one of them, but you think you could get a game-altering all-pro at a certain position at 7, well, then you do it. Then you obviously do it. Now, let's look at what's going to what's required to even make this happen. So, listen, we know the draft order. I shouldn't assume that everybody knows it. I'll reset it briefly. This is basic stuff. But Titans, Browns, Giants, obviously. You got the Jaguars, the Raiders are at 6. Jets are at 7. Now, the Titans, and again, unless this is a massive, I got the hiccups all of a sudden, a massive smokescreen by Tennessee trying to, incentivize somebody to move up and give up a king's ransom. I mean, everybody's playing a game at this point. I don't know exactly what game the Titans are playing. My best guess, they're not taking a quarterback. That's my best guess. I believe that they want to trade out, or I believe that they just look at these two quarterbacks and they say, not worth the first overall pick. We're taking whomever at 1. And it will be one of the defensive players, I would think, right? So Tennessee needs a quarterback, but I don't know that they're married to the concept of taking one. I have no idea what the heck the Browns are going to do. Who knows? With the situation with Deshaun Watson and the awful, what is it, $236 million guaranteed dollars to Deshaun Watson. And forget about the massage stuff. He just stinks. He can't play. So do they draft a quarterback? I don't think they're going to scoot up to 1. I think that they have a lot of holes to address. I can see them, let's say that somebody shoots up to 1 and it's and they take a quarterback and they take Cam, because I don't think Shador is going 1. I think if any quarterback goes 1, it's going to be Cam Ward. And I would agree with that myself. But if the Browns stay at 2, I don't think you're going to see Cam Shador. I think you're going to see Cam something else, different position. The third spot, obviously, the Giants. They haven't been connected to Cam Ward once. Are the Giants throwing out this crazy smoke screen? I don't know. Everything, as I just said, appears to be pointing to Shador Sanders, but there's also the Matthew Stafford situation, which I believe the Giants are absolutely in on. Just talking to people and obviously following up on some stuff. I think that that's real. I think that Stafford's going to be an ex-Ram. I think that the Giants will absolutely be in the market to grab him. Remember, people trying to save their behinds. They could draft the quarterback, but if that quarterback doesn't look good and they go 5-12 and he's like, everybody's gone. You're not going 5-12 with Stafford. You're just not. So anyway, there's so many variations here, so bear with me. Let's say the Tennessee Titans stay at 1 and they go non-quarterback. Let's say the Browns stay at 2 and go non-quarterback. Although if Cam Ward slips to 2, I can probably maybe see the Browns taking him. But then I think at that point, if Shador's there, I think the Giants take him. The Patriots, Drake May, not taking him. The Jaguars, I don't think they lament drafting Trevor Lawrence. I think it's pretty obvious to say, like the Jets with their guys, they messed them up. Multiple coaches. They're a clown show. So, but I think Trevor Lawrence is still very good, and I know they're not taking a quarterback. So now you get to the Raiders. The Raiders, it was a pretty obscure stat that I saw earlier today. I believe the Raiders have only taken a quarterback in the first round 3 times in their franchise history. Now, that doesn't mean that Mark Davis won't, buck that trend and go quarterback, but can I see the Raiders kicking the tires on Aaron Rodgers? I could. They got to sell tickets. Like they have a new stadium, but they're very boring. They're very unappealing. Like their offense is awful. I don't think Rodgers is the ultimate answer, but he'd be better than what they had. And then, of course, you get to the Jets at number 7. So there are so many different machinations here. Now, the other thing that you have to worry about, or at least factor in, who behind the Jets might be motivated and incentivized to move up to draft a quarterback. I don't think there's many teams except the Saints, and I think the Saints are 9. I believe the Saints are 9. So that's a possibility. So this is what we're looking at from a Jets perspective. You sit there at 7. You're not getting a quarterback at 7. Well, you're not getting the 2 aforementioned quarterbacks. Doesn't mean you might not covet somebody else, and you maybe take a reach that people criticize, but he works out. But in all probability, if the Jets stay at 7, it's highly implausible that they draft a quarterback. All right. That's one option. Then they just feel the need, as I said, try to find an all-pro somewhere else. If they move up, they're obviously moving up for the quarterback. If they scoot back, here's what's interesting. Let's say Jackson Dart. That's a name that has also been loosely connected to the Jets. Let's say they go from, I'm just throwing shit out here, 7 to 11, whomever, all right? And whatever they get for that move. I don't even know what the commensurate deal would be for 4 draft slots, but they do, all right? And they've got the board for that. Let's say they drop down a few spots and they recover a few lost assets, but they don't take a quarterback at 11. Well, there's nothing preventing them deeper in the draft that there's a quarterback that they like, okay, that they view more as a later first round talent or maybe even second round, but maybe they find a way to jump back with another pick based on the first trade into round one and do what the Ravens did years ago. And that's draft Lamar Jackson at 32. And then you get the 5th-year option. Like, there's so much here. And I think it's so interesting. And I look at, and now I'm at the point now where I'm jumping into the film. And I'm not saying that Shedeur Sanders is not going to be a good player in the NFL, but I'm not saying that he is. And I'm not like, Deion's style, like I know that rubs some people love it, some people rub some people the wrong way. I'm fairly agnostic to it because Deion played his ass off. Now, yeah, he's all about the show and the hype, but Deion's also all about respect and accountability. You hear the way, I'm sure you've seen clips over the years of him addressing whether it's Jackson State or his Colorado locker room. Like, he doesn't take any nonsense. Like, I'm pretty sure he makes these kids go to school. And I'm pretty sure that, Shedeur growing up in that household, just talking shop with Pops, like, they're not going to be overwhelmed. And, the one thing that some people worry about is, Shedeur, how hungry could he be? Well, Dad grew up with a ton of money and he's driving this and he's got the, $1 million, $2 million of NIL money. And he's already basically been basically not even pseudo. He's been a professional athlete and he's had money since he came out of the womb. Is he really hungry? You know how unfair that is to wealthy people? I mean, look at Eli Manning and look at Peyton Manning. Their dad didn't make the money that Deion made in the NFL just because when he came up. But are you telling me that Eli and Peyton and Cooper didn't have every privilege known to man? Come on. Of course, you're a Manning. And I mean going to, the Jesuit, I forget the name of it, the Jesuit private school out there in Louisiana, which back then was, if I had to guess, probably about $20,000, which now it's a lot. Back then, that's a ton. And they had, they were fairly affluent. They had a beautiful home. You tell me they didn't take nice vacations? They're hungry. You tell me their dad didn't drive a new car? Or you tell me that they were driving, like I was driving my first car, a 1987 Chevy Cavalier that was falling apart with 109,000 miles on it? No. I'm pretty sure at some point Dad gave him a Jeep or gave him something pretty cool, right? So I just think that that's unfair to Shedeur. I just don't know if he's good enough. I don't know. I don't love the way he processes. Not process. He doesn't. It's not seeing things. I watch Cam Ward and I watch Shedeur. And I'll be honest, I never looked at quarterbacks this way until I worked with Tiki. And Tiki opened my eyes to this, right? And I'm going to actually use a little diagram here. That's why you go back to, like, whether it's Jesse Palmer or, Rex Grossman was a pro, but, these Florida SEC quarterbacks, even Toretta at Miami, these guys have put up monster college numbers. Here's the difference, and I just have to draw this out. So in college, I'll explain it, then I'll do a very basic, 5-year-old diagram. In college, you're throwing to space, all right? You are throwing to an open radius. Your guy, especially if you're at Florida or one of those big schools, right? Ohio State, your guy split wide, and he runs a 4.32, and no matter what, the guy who's opposite him, a corner. Now, I don't mean like a Michigan corner or a few rare corners that have that elite skill set. But I promise you, basically every Saturday that these wide receivers line up among the top 2, 3, 4 college programs in America, they've got a 3 or a 4/10 of a second differential in speed. Their measurables across the board are just better. So they're beating their guy, bang, hike, gone. And now the corners trailing, catching up. And guess what? When you're catching up in college, you are throwing to this big circle. All right. And that's really, and again, I never really looked at it that way. And I remember really when I first started working with that, I worked with Tiki for 10 years. And this is like one of the first things I truly learned from him about football. Now, I've worked with other guys who played in the NFL, but they were all defensive players. All right. And that makes sense. So this guy's wide open. Anybody could throw it if he's wide open. It's a gash play. he crawls in or he walks in backwards 50 yards. It goes down as an 80-yard touchdown strike, but was it really the kind of 80-yard touchdown strike that you're going to see on Sunday? First of all, you don't see many 80-yard touchdown strikes on Sunday because the coaching's better and the competition's comparable. So that's the radius, right? That's the window that you throw into in college. And now this is the window that you throw into in the NFL. All right? You notice the difference there, guys? Little difference. It's like trying to hit a car that's moving 10 miles an hour or trying to hit a doorknob from across the street. It's just different. And I watch Cam, and I think Cam is going to be much better at that because I think the film already tells me that he is. All right? And I'll let others get into the film. That's just my non-scout evaluation. If the Jets move up for a quarterback, it better be Cam. Better be. And I think they're contemplating it. I actually think it's a real possibility. I don't love it, but I'm not opposed to it. I'm opposed to Sanders or anybody else at 1, 2, or whatever. Giants aren't going to trade with the Jets. They need their own quarterback. So, the other thing too, and a caller said he called us up the other day. No, I guess it was like last week when we were really deep into the Stafford stuff. He's like, yeah, BT, I know you're a Jets guy. You need a quarterback. How come you don't want Stafford? I'm like, I do. I don't think they can afford him. Now the salary cap, I don't know if you guys caught this the other day, is going to increase by $20 million next year. That's a big jump. And that is now several years in succession where it's going up instead of like 6 million or 7 million, like it usually does, 18 million, 22 million. You add that up, that's $40 million over 2 years, right? And then a third year, suddenly, even if it's not quite that, it's going to be $55-ish million over the course of 3 years. So while the Jets, and you could always, rework some deals and punt some stuff down the road, I get it because, the Rams did that for years and the Patriots managed to do that. No, the good franchises do it. That's why we don't really do it very often. But you can do it. And hopefully, and by the way, and I've said this too, it's very appealing to me that Muji dealt with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's dead cap hit, I believe, you can fact check me on this, I'm sure you will. I think it was $59 million. And they said, nah, he ain't good. Get out of here. No. And they went a different direction. Oh, yeah, by the way, they made the playoffs. So not that not that Muji made that decision independent of everybody else in the room. He wasn't the general manager. I believe that's patent. But he was in the meetings and a part of discussion points where I'm sure that room was pretty split because $60 million is a nut to knock off. So I'm not, I guess what I'm saying is, I guess the Jets could afford Matthew Stafford. And I think Matthew Stafford, I think he's better than Rodgers. I know he's younger than Rodgers. I guess I'm just a little reluctant to go all in on that. I just want to find our own young kid. Can we please, for once, find that kid? Please. I am dying a slow quarterback death every year. It's like, all right, is Rodgers going to come back? All right, is Rodgers going to be healthy? Even going back, now, I've said this on previous pods. My favorite all-time Jets season was 98. And I won't trace over it again because it's long, but the condensed version is 96, they were atrocious with Kotite. 90, they were 1-15. Parcells comes in the next year. They go from 1-15 to 9-7. And then the next year in 98, they win, they go 12-4. They win their first divisional title. That's Parcells. They should have beat the Broncos. If they got to the Super Bowl, they would have kicked the shit out of the Falcons, and they would have been Super Bowl champions, right? But the reason, and I love Vinny, and I love Corbett, and Keyshawn and Curtis, and I love that team. Parcells, I love that team. Love it. But even like the apex of my Jet fandom was a reclamation quarterback. Like Vinny was, I don't want to say Vinny was on the scrap heap because Vinny had 1 or 2 good years with the Ravens. But he was a failed first-round pick. Look, I think Vinny's first year with Tampa, I was just doing this with Sal the other day. I think he threw 13 touchdowns and had 35 picks. Like, it was ghastly. And Vinny wound up, of course, in 99, it ruptures his Achilles. It's always something with this team. But the point is, I got to get my hands on a young, dynamic, flame-throwing stud quarterback. I need it. I got to sit back and watch football Sundays like, oh, the Texans. Oh, think about the Texans fans for the next however many years. Hey, let's go, CJ. Come on, buddy. Let's go. Think about Bills fans. I know he hasn't won yet in terms of the Super Bowl, but hey, we got Josh. You know, I mean, think about the Chiefs with Mahomes. Think about the Bengals. If they had half a defense, Joe Burrow would be in multiple Super Bowls by now. Burrow's incredible. You know, the Chargers finally got a coach for Herbert. Look what they did year one with Harbaugh. I know they didn't play well in the playoffs, but they're going to be a problem for a while, you know. Jalen Hurts. All right, he's not quite like those guys, but he's young. He's dynamic. He's a Super Bowl champion. I need it. You know, even Tua, who I'm not a big believer in, he's just too injury prone, and I don't know if he's got enough juice on the ball and cold weather, whatever. But, I mean, even Tua, you know, not this year, last year, was putting up banging numbers. I need that. I need it. And I know, like, if the Jets were to go out and get something, like get Stafford, I know they'd be better than last year because it's going to be better coach. That's a given. And I think they'd be a wild card team. I truly do. Because what they would do is penalties would be cut in half. They would absolutely either free agency or via the draft, they would get a run stuffer. They just could not stop the run last year. So suddenly, you know, Big Q's got some help. Jermaine Johnson's back on the end. He got McDonald, who's a good player. You know, you got to get a little more speed on the third level, whatever, and one more O-lineman. But they're not a tight end. They're not far away. We all know this. I mean, how many one-score games did they lose? And that is appealing. That is appealing to me on one level, to escape the misery that has followed us forever. But, you know, as I look at this pragmatically and I stretch it out for years, can I close my eyes and envision Matthew Stafford raising the Lombardi trophy for the Jets? I can't. And I know he's not finished. He's still good. But by the time they make the tweaks that they're going to have to make to get them up to a Super Bowl standard, then he might be too old, you know? So, you know, I wouldn't kick and scream and protest if it was Stafford. I just don't think they're thinking that. But this is a fun period. And, you know, teams like the Pats and the Jaguars, they're not taking quarterbacks. The Giants are hunting a quarterback unless they get in the draft, unless they get Stafford. The Raiders probably hunting a quarterback. Maybe the Saints. I don't think the Titans take one. I have no idea what the hell the Browns are going to do. But those are the options. And I'm pretty damn excited. Hey, Ev. Get my guy Ev up in here. Ev,
hey,
what's going on, buddy?
how's it going?
It's good, man. It's good. Everything's good. So I just laid it all out. Whether it's Stafford, whether it's Cam, whether it's Shador, whether it's staying at 7, whether it's moving up, whether it's moving back. You are a smart young Jets fan. You are my producer. You heard me every word. You process all this. What is your biggest takeaway? What's most interesting to you?
So I definitely agree with you on the fact that I just think Cam Ward is the much better option. If you're going after a guy, I definitely think he has the better chance. Because, like, I remember during the beginning of the Colorado craze last year, I was watching Shador, and I think his biggest thing, and maybe it's an easy correction, but he just holds onto the ball forever.
Yes, he does.
He takes a million years to throw it, and I feel like they're just going to eat him alive in the NFL with that stuff. So I would really be intrigued by Cam Ward. I'd be curious if, like, the new GM, if they want to just wait it out or if they want to go up. Stafford would be super intriguing, although I guess you kind of run the risk of, like, is it going to end up being another similar to, like, Rodgers situation where you end up with an older guy that's kind of past the part of his career where you want him, and then you're in the same kind of boat. But it's just like, I think the only other guy in free agency outside of just doing the status quo and just having, like, Tyrod or some random guy in here next year would probably be Fields. And I think
100%. Oh, that's the one name, and I have it written down. That's the other name. If they don't go Stafford, don't draft somebody. Fields they're not paying Darnold. And I've said that on the pod. Justin Fields, he's, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10 for me, he's probably about a 7.5, maybe an 8 with the right coaching. I'd be okay with Fields for sure.
Yeah, because he's like one of the few guys that it's like you're not going to probably have to pay him a ton because he barely played this year with Pittsburgh, kind of. Yep. So he's like, his market isn't crazy like Darnold's probably would be or will be. But at the same time, you're still getting a guy where it's like there still might be some unlocked talent that hopefully, the new offensive coordinator and the whole coaching staff can maybe, help get out of him. If we get if we get a better O-line here, and then we have the parts that we can have, even if we acquire, let's say, the McMillan guy in the draft as a wide receiver, because you're getting rid of Devontae Adams. So then you bring him in here and it's like, you got Breece Hall, you got Garrett Wilson, and you got McMillan, all guys that all have the tools to kind of get it done. If we help with the O-line and free agency, you're going to set him up to be pretty solid. So I agree. Feel like as long as you build around him, if you're going to go down the, veteran quarterback route, I think as long as you build around him, you could be pretty solid with that.
Look at that, bringing the heat today. And by the way, it just hit me. I'm not asking you to do it, but I imagine, even with the glasses a little, you know who you look like? But I would imagine, especially without the glasses, it just hit me.
Yeah.
You look like Sam Darnold a little bit. Have you ever got like just the Sam with the facial hair? The
I've
skin
gotten into that. My one cousin who's also a Met fan says Christian Scott a lot. That Mets pitcher that was up for about 5 seconds.
Sure. Yeah. I see a little Darnold in you, Yeah. So that means you're due for a big payday soon. The other thing, the only other thing. Now it's funny, like the Stafford Rodgers thing. And I'm a Rodgers fan. You know that. I was disappointed in the decision, but I get it. It's a new team, new regime. Do what you got to do. Let's go on behind it. I appreciate the quick, swift decision. They just seem decisive, so I'm behind it. Yep. Rodgers brought, even though I like him, some different baggage. Matthew Stafford as a player doesn't bring any baggage, but you know who does? Maybe his wife.
Yeah.
Like, do I really need Kelly Stafford doing a podcast? I could just imagine, me having to deal with, and all of us that do this for a living that are Jet enthusiasts. All right, Jets are 2-5. There's Kelly Stafford. I don't even know the name of her pod, and I'm not here to disparage it, but that's the last thing I need is a quarterback's wife doing a pod in the number one market, even though pods are worldwide, based in New York. All of a sudden, emptying the tank about the Jets building. I don't want any part of that, and she's done that with the Rams, by the way.
Yeah. So it just it'd be pretty funny if the GM and coach were like, part of the reason we parted with Rodgers was some other stuff, but it was also maybe a little bit of McAfee, and then it's like we're bringing in a quarterback who he doesn't do it, but his wife does.
Exactly, and no McAfee, but we'll set you up. You can do remotes from the cafeteria, Kelly. Oh my God! Hey, I'm going to wrap it up with this. Good job, by the way, Ev.
Yep.
The good news is that last year there was no option. I mean, we're sitting here last year saying, "Oh God, Rodgers, please be healthy," and I think we all knew he'd be back, but we're like, oh, "Please be good." The year before that, when he first came, we're like, "Please save us." Like every year, most of the hope is devoted to one person. Now they've still got to make the right decision here, but the options to me are as plentiful from a Jets quarterback position as I've seen in a long time. Now they got to nail it. And I get paid to tell them what I'm thinking. They get paid to do it. So Mooj, AG, let's go, brothers. Let's go. Let's do it. All right. And again, I'm happy you brought up Fields because I would definitely be okay with Fields. And whether it's, you add some other stuff at 7, there's a lot of options. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode number 26. Spotify, Apple, everywhere you guys shop for your pods. Let your buddies know, no matter what state they're in. Let them know, hey, this guy in New York, this lunatic Jets guy, if they don't know who I am, he's got a pretty good pod. Hopefully you think it's a pretty good pod. And, he shoots it straight. He loves the team. He's gonna air it out when he has to. He knows what's going on. So I appreciate you guys rolling with me so far. And as I always tell you, and we'll do more and more and more and more. There's just, the one thing that I don't have a lot of interest in doing, and just a quick little step back, like to me, and I've had some people tell me this, hey, you got to do more pods to get more traction. And the traction's been good, particularly on YouTube. So I appreciate that viewership. But I don't have a lot of interest in doing a podcast if I don't have a whole lot to say. Like, I don't want to do an uninteresting podcast. When I do the podcast, I'm going to have a lot to say. So the next time I'm firing things up, it's either I heard something out of the building or in the building, or, just hopefully some salient thoughts about this next chapter in Jets history. Hopefully it's a good one. All right, guys, have a great weekend. Go Johnny's. Johnny's big one. Big one on Sunday, number 10 of the country. I know a lot of you Jet fans are St. John's fans. You know, if you're a Jets fan, a lot of you are from Queens back in the day or out east, you know. Generally, I know not always, but generally that's a loose geographical connection, and a lot of St. John's fans out there. So hopefully you're enjoying this. I'll be at the Garden doing the game on Sunday. Monday, Sal is off. Oh God, if you heard Sal talking about Disney this week, go to Disney. Oh, about packing and about he is a piss of me. He makes me laugh, that dude. But Sal's off, so I'll be rolling solo on the Fan Monday through Friday. And make sure you tune in. Have an awesome weekend. I'll see you guys soon. Thank you very much.